You're listening to
Sticky Note Conversations with Erika Washington.
Hey there, Sticky Note listeners. This is your host, Erika Washington. And as most Nevadans are probably aware, Governor Lombardo called a special session of the Nevada Legislature on November 13th. And as of recording, it is still going on. It was called to address specific issues that couldn't wait until the next regular session in 2027. The biggest topics being the film tax credit expansion and the criminal justice package that was crafted specifically by the governor. Now, listeners, I hope you've been paying attention, and not just to national news, but also to what's going on with your local representatives and how they are creating and voting on your behalf. And since we're continuing our replay era, I wanted to throw it back to a conversation with an Assemblyman, Youi Winn. This came from April of this year. Hopefully over time, we have an opportunity to speak with all of our elected officials. In the meantime, I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as we did.
Way below acceptable. Way below acceptable.
On this week's episode,
being able to be the first Vietnamese immigrant to be elected anywhere in Nevada is truly a calling. Whatever the platform may be, tell your story, because that is how we truly learn about what's around us.
Way below acceptable.
Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of Sticky Note Conversations. I'm your host, Erika Washington. Today is going to be another great conversation. We're going to talk to one of my favorite people, and he's more than just a friend. He's also a husband, a father of two adorable children. He's an immigrant, business owner, community advocate. He's also the founder and president of One APIA Nevada, which is a grassroots nonprofit organization that was founded in 2018. They empower everyday Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Nevadans to become voices of change for their community. But his biggest role right now is he is the assembly member for District 8 in Nevada. Please welcome to Sticky Note Conversations, Youi Nguyen. Hello, darling.
Well, hello. So great to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for finding time. So we were just talking before we started recording about how busy you are. As a lot of people may know, we've talked about it on previous episodes, but the legislative session for the state of Nevada began just earlier in February. And so we're off and running, and session is pretty short. It's only 120 days and it's only every 2 years. So you all have to fit a lot of stuff in a very small amount of time. So I want to first ask you, how are you doing and how is session going for you? Because this is your second term, correct?
Yes, it is my second term, and it's kind of, my personality. I'm very unfiltered. So when people ask me the phrase, how are you? I just looked at them and I go, all right, let me give you a pro tip. For the next 100 and something days left, when you see a legislator, do not ask them, how are you? Because that is something that they're going to look at you funny. Or if the people just say fine and moved on, that means they don't really want to answer. So for me, I just tell people I am thriving and I am here to serve the people of Nevada. But, when people are like, how are you? Like, how are you doing? I go, how do you think I'm doing? Like you said, we have 120 days to review like 1,000 pieces of legislation, and we have a very compact time to do it. And, it's a very high volume, high stress time. And we all is doing our best to serve our constituent and our state. So there's a lot of stakes involved and a lot of high intensity. So can't really answer that in a simple, how are you?
Well, you look good, so that counts. What I want to ask you, I want to lay out a couple of things, what folks may not know. The Nevada legislature, like I said, is every 2 years. It's considered a citizens legislature, which means you aren't paid a full salary to do this work, but it is a full-time job. I want to talk to you a little bit about why you decided to run and what motivates you to keep doing a job that is long and stressful and can be complicated and messy sometimes. And sometimes folks don't even actually know what's happening on a day-to-day basis to give you all the credit that you deserve. So and you knew that going in. So this is not a surprise to you. What made you say, you know what? I want to be an assemblyman.
Oh, well, I think you said earlier a little bit about my bio. I am an immigrant. So I was born in Vietnam and I immigrated to the US when I was 11. And, coming from a country where your voice doesn't really matter in a, environment where your voice doesn't really mean anything. You don't really get to hold public office. You don't get to change how things work for the better. So you just kind of go on and do things and never really can say anything. So coming into the US and then starting from scratch in terms of learning the language, learning the culture, there are so many things that work against the immigrant community because the laws and the policy here in our country is still not where it needs to be. So growing up, and obviously most immigrants are told that part of American dream, especially for the Asian American community, is go be a doctor, go be a lawyer, go be an engineer. And I didn't follow that path. So maybe I'm a bad Asian, who knows? But the political piece of the conversation is truly not being taught to us, right? Because we're taught to assimilate, we're taught to truly just mix in, but don't necessarily speak up. So through my college years and through my work in the Asian American Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander community, I look around. I don't see people like me. I don't see people from my cultures who are at the table. And that's something that bothered me because if we are a country with so much richness and history, because we are a country found by immigrants way back when, I think we kind of along the way forgot that we are a country of immigrants. And so being able to be the first Vietnamese immigrant to be elected anywhere in Nevada, in any position, is truly a calling that I'm blessed to be able to represent this perspective and be able to be part of that conversation and having some hard conversations about how do we move our state forward together and not just, pit one community against another. I think that really motivates me. And you and I have worked together in the trenches for many years in the grassroots advocacy sectors. And we know that if we're not speaking up, then people will speak for us and they may not know what the heck they're talking about. So that is a small motivation. And then, of course, obviously, we want to open doors for others to follow. Because I'm the first, I don't want to be the last. So that's something that motivates me every day to continue to really advocate for our community and our state, and then make sure that there are folks who learning the process as well. And thank goodness for term limits in Nevada, because once I am term limited, there will be many people wanting to run for this role.
How does it feel to be the first? Is it heavy? Do you feel this sense of, or an extra sense of responsibility being the first?
Yes, definitely there is quite that culture of really being afraid that you are going to fail and you're going to fail miserably, because then people will say, oh, hey, that guy definitely did not deserve to be there, or no wonder no one else in that community ever run for anything because they just don't know how to do it. And I think that's something that I take very close to my heart, and also in the decisions that I get to make in this process, is that you have to be everything to everyone, but all of us have the same 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we all have the same number of time. So how do you effectively represent your constituent? And my assembly district is so diverse. We have the largest Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander population in the entire state in my district. And then we also have a large Latino community. We actually have a large African immigrant community. People coming from, dozens of countries in Africa, anywhere from Sierra Leone to Nigeria to Kenya. There are so many. And then, of course, we have the Pacific Islander community is also growing here. So there's so many good stories that we need to lift up. And I think that's the time that I really love about my job, is that I get to bring those narratives to the table, just because people think that we just are boxes, right? You just check one box and you got all of that community or got all of that diversity, but it's more than that. It's more than just checking boxes. It's really understanding that everyday decisions that we make can affect people in so many different ways.
What does this session look like for you as far as bills? What are the top bills that you want folks to know that you are concentrating on and you're working to move through?
So all of us incumbent, because this is my second term, so we have the ability to submit up to 10 legislation, but 10 is a lot. And, last session I tried 8 and it was very overwhelming. We only allow 6 as a freshman, and I work with a couple of colleagues to add a couple more to my plate. So definitely I was not very strategic there.
There's a pattern you have with adding more and more there. And I realize there's so much you just want to get done because it's such a short amount of time, but you will overload yourself because I think personally, and this is my opinion, that you see so much that needs to happen, that you want to happen for our community, and that everything is urgent. And when we only have an opportunity at what they call the bite at the apple every 2 years, you want to try to do as much as possible. But, at the same time, you are juggling a lot already.
Yes. Very true. You know that because it takes even a minute to even get the two of us in the same place.
Yeah, this coordination was one for the ages. That is for sure.
But I think my priorities, of course, as you stated in my bio, is that because I am a community leader and I am a small business owner and I am a legislator as well as I'm a parent, I represent most of those interests in a sense where I live them every day, right? So as a citizen legislature, you're trying to do things that you have some knowledge about. Because a lot of times, people think that the assembly folks and state senate folks are experts on everything. We are not. Just want to say that one more time. We are not experts in anything by any means. We are everyday people who trying to do our best to make our state better. So we learn from the experts like you, right? We pick up the phone and we call, Erika, who run Make It Work. We pick up the phone and we call Emily, who's run Silver State Voices. We pick up the phone and we call Laura Martin from Plan. We make those calls to those experts because we're not going to be able to know everything. Those are the things that is important to understand, that you are not doing this work alone. So some of my legislation, like yesterday, I had one of my first hearings for one of my bills was AB 112. And that bill is truly to remove the exemption that we had put in the past in 2021 before I got elected, to ensure that everyday Nevadan who go to work and have to make sure that they can put food on the table and have a roof over their heads have the ability to use their sick leave to take care of their loved ones. So, I'm a parent and I have 2 young children and I have 2 sets of aging parents, my parents and my in-laws, who needs medical appointments, who fall sick and need to get to the doctor, and no one is able to take them except me or my wife, right? So for you to have sick leave and you use it to take care of your family member, because that's all of our roles, and get penalized for that, That's wrong. That is definitely something that should not happen in this modern age because all of us can relate to that, you know? And so having this legislation setting the floor so that we can, if we can do better, if some employers can do more, great. But at least for the very basic need of that benefit of being able to take care of your loved one and not worry about getting written up for something that is part of our human experience. And so I think that is common sense. And I can't believe we have to legislate those things in 2025. But
Why do you think there's so much pushback?
you know, I really think that the change in how we work as a society are sometimes too fast for some of the people that exist in our states. I mean, I did have a question from one of my colleagues that says, why do we need to do this? And the interesting thing is that when someone even asks, why do we need to do this? It kind of blows my mind because all of us go through this. And even when we're aging and when we're in our twilight years, we want someone to be able to, you know, I want my son to be able to come and take his time off from work to go take me to the doctor because I physically can't drive at that time or whatever reason, right? Or emergencies that arises. You should not be penalized because you have to take care of your family. And if you want your workers and the folks who, you know, do well at work, then their home life got to be balanced so that they can go and excel at work. So employers need to think that this is not just a, oh, their absence, I'm not going to get their productivity. No, they're going to take care of what they need to take care of so that they can focus on that work when they're at work and not worry about something is blowing up at home. So that is something that common sense these days. And that's why, you know, I'm so glad that I'm able to do this at this point in my life is to go into our citizen legislature and do things that is common sense. And sadly, our laws in the books are still not as common sense as we like. And my commitment is to make sure that while I'm able to still be able to serve in this role and honored to serve in this role, that the things I do are common sense.
Yeah, you know, the paid sick days and the paid family leave, these are core issues that Make It Work Nevada has worked on for a number of years. And passing the original paid sick days law in 2019 was something that Make It Work Nevada led on. And even then, it was a problem. And I should actually back up because it was actually 2017 when we first brought it and we got it all the way to the governor's desk. And at that time, Brian Sandoval was the governor of Nevada and he vetoed the bill. And so then brought back in 2019. But the pushback that we received, not just from what people call the other side or other side of the aisle, but from lobbyists who represent other industries, they spend a lot of time thinking people are going to abuse something or they're going to use it in some nefarious way, which to me is silly because it's earned time off. So you have to earn it and you only earn so much of it. And if you earn it, you can use all of it. And one of the things I also noticed in one of the last hearings that someone said is like, oh, well, it should be, because people believe it should be more than just like your nuclear family, your mother or father or what have you, because that's not how everyone's family looks. And also, I think just as much in the Asian community as it is in the Black community, this respect for elders and this respect for family. And family looks, it could be your cousin, it could be your auntie. Aunties are really important. I want to be able to take them where they need to go. And I want to be able to spend the quality time with them that I can, while I can, because that regret when someone is gone, that's going to sit with you for a long time. And having to decide between that or whether or not I'm going to keep my job or whether or not I'm going to end up on some sort of probation or what have you, it's really nonsensical to me. And so it goes back to that thing around what is really common sense and do we even have it? Because it really shouldn't be an argument that everyone deserves to have time off to do whatever it is that they need to do if they have earned that time off. So it's really disappointing. And sometimes I wonder, looking at it from my viewpoint, looking at you all as legislators having to defend it to some of these folks and keep a straight face and also, keep your cool about it. Feels like it could be difficult sometimes.
Oh, I know. I think I sometimes get like an out of body experience when I hear my colleague on the other side of the aisle, even as early as yesterday in the hearing. And his question was, why do we need to legislate this? It's funny because I laugh and then I think about it. I'm like, well, of course he's not going to be able to relate to this. He's retired, right? So he doesn't know that this is something that could affect negatively to him because he never have to worry about getting written up for calling in to take his loved one to a medical appointment. So that is the downside also of the legislative process because we're so diverse as a state and our lawmakers come from all walks of life. I'm kind of glad that the majority of us can relate and those that cannot relate are, in a very small number so that we can still move forward and do things that are common sense and really, truly, I do hope that, my colleagues who have negative views about this just think about what it's like to be in the other person's shoes, right? A lot of us are so quick to judge and truly because it doesn't affect us anymore, that's why we don't care. And I think that's the hard part sometimes, working in day out with people in the building and you feel like they should know the basics, but you still have to go and explain it to them, the basics. So that is sometimes very stressful in this role. But again, you gotta keep pushing because otherwise, we can't make it work.
I see what you did there.
You're listening to
Sticky Note Conversations with Erika Washington.
Oh, tell folks what a day in the life of Nevada Assemblyman looks like during session. What time are you getting up? How many meetings are you having? What's going on?
Well, you've known me for a long time. You've never known me to be a morning person. And this second term, this session has definitely challenged that theory very well. I am now a, early riser because I have to be in the building by 7 a.m. And then our first committee meetings are 8. So I serve on 4 different committees, which is not normal. All of our colleagues, for the most part, serve on 3 committees in the assembly, and I serve on 4. So that's why my days are a lot longer, is because I have a little bit more responsibility. And out of those 4 committees, I'm vice chair of 2 of them. So those are additional responsibility on top of my role as a legislator. And so serving in these roles allow me to be more collaborative with my colleagues across the entire legislature and be able to learn more. So I'm on the Assembly Government Affairs Committee. I'm on the Assembly Health and Human Services Committee. Those are the 2 that I'm also vice chair. Then I'm also on Assembly Revenue. And then the last one is Assembly Growth and Infrastructure. So those are all very busy committees that take on a lot of different issues that our states are facing. And, we get to hear from so many different issues, from how city and county works in certain part of our state to roads and infrastructure, as well as some of the economic development opportunities that are coming into our state, as well as the healthcare is a huge topic that has so much complexity. And in our ripe age of 29 plus, We are health is everything. So we want to be able to do the right policy that can affect the well-being of our entire community. So Health and Human Services is truly a big undertaking. So that is my day. And on top of that, we have floor, we have to go on to floor and do, different protocols and different procedures in the day of the elected state representatives. So I go from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. every single day and make sure that I meet with all the constituents that want to meet with all of the stakeholders, and making sure that every legislation that I move forward have the input of all of the stakeholders, because you can't do this work alone. You have to be able to collaborate, and you're not going to make everybody happy, but you got to do your very best so that everybody walk away feeling like they are included in the process.
Yeah, I think it's about folks being heard and including their stories and their experiences, and so that those who don't understand the lives of folks that need a lot of these policies, so that it gets through to them. Now, Carson City, which is the state capital, is about an 8-hour drive from Las Vegas. And the flight is like 45 minutes, 50 minutes. How often are you getting home during session?
That is a very great, awesome questions. The travel during the winter season is definitely challenging, whether you drive or whether you fly. I try to get home every weekend because, as you know, I have 2 young children, and one is turning 6 this year, and one is turning 12. So their extracurricular activities is every single day. And I want to be able to help my wife and, be their shuttle driver for the kids and be able to, spend time with them. And that's hard for a lot of us. That's not that many, but there's a good number of us who are parents of young children, and we are leaving them every week to go do this. So that is hard to make it work sometimes.
Do you ever feel guilty?
I think that definitely is there every single day. I check in with them every day. We thank you for technology. I do a video call with them every day, checking in to make sure that I am not an absent, figure. And I know that's hard because growing up, because my dad was one of the early boat people that left Vietnam in the middle of the night, and I didn't meet him until I was 11, right? So growing up, I had one parent, right? And then even coming to the States, they both work day and night to make sure that we survive, as they don't have anything. So I definitely feel that, and I see that. And now that I'm a parent, I make it, a priority. So I know that I want to be there for my constituent. I want to be there to really help troubleshoot, but I do prioritize time with my family so that I can continue to be in this role effectively. So yes, there's going to be time where I'm not going to be able to come home on weekends just because of the urgency of the legislative business. But so far, I'm able to come home every single weekend.
I think there's no way to parent and not feel guilty about something, whether you're gone for long periods or if it's just a matter of your job is hard or you're stressed or whatever it is. I think it's also a sign of good parenting when you feel like a crappy parent sometimes, because it means that you're trying and it means that you care. And also, I honestly can't believe that your younger one, your daughter, is turning 6. Like, you said it and I'm like, no. I just bought her baby booties. So like, she's not still wearing those cute little pink boots I bought her. Oh my gosh. That children grow up, we don't age. That's what I'd like to stick to.
What are you talking about? Your children are in their 20s. Oh my
Yes, I know. 25, 21, and almost 18.
Right.
I have voters.
Yes, you have voters. You have
I have
voters.
voters.
Taxpayers.
I have taxpayers and voters and folks with credit scores now. So yeah, people ask like, oh, do you have kids? No, I have adults. So thinking about issues that specifically concern the Asian community, which, will run the gamut because we're all human beings and folks here all have issues that sort of align a lot of times, but sometimes there are things that stand out more in certain communities. And so it's always, to me, a sort of strange question because it feels sort of blanketed. What do Asians care about? Like it's one lump and one monolith. But I want to know what the Asian community in Nevada is most concerned about and how folks who are not in the community can be supportive.
I think the question of what the community cares about is truly difficult to answer, is because, as you aware of, many of the Asian communities have so many different distinction of, the culture and the background and, the way they live, right? So to add all that in is definitely challenging to make sure that you address everyone's need. But I think when it all comes down to it, education is important in the Asian culture, and health and economic prosperity is important, because these are the families that come from other part of the world coming here with nothing in their pocket and trying to survive, and just like the founding fathers of this country coming into this new land and to be a part of that American dream. It's so simple in the sense that we want to be able to get our education, we want to be able to take care of our health care, and we want to be able to have lifelong career that will bring value to the community where we live, but also at the same time continue to pass on that wealth from generation to generation, because none of us want to be in poverty. None of us wants to be in illness stage all the time. And none of us want to be living from job to job or trying to make ends meet just because what our output is a lot more than what we take in. So we want to be able to do this in a way where people don't get overlooked. And a lot of time, like I said in the beginning, the Asian community often get overlooked because we don't speak up. We fit into that model minority myth where, oh, they must be very well educated. They must be driving a fancy car and live in a nice big house. They must be all doctors. Example right here, I'm not, right? I don't live in a big house. I don't drive a fancy car, and I'm definitely not a doctor. We want to be able to tell that stories. And that's why I every time I get to be in front of an audience or, speaking in front of a group, whether they're elementary students to, senior retirement group, is that it's so important for all of us to tell our stories. Whether it's good story, whether it's bad stories, whether it's stories that we're still struggling to even say, continue to lift up those stories, because as lawmakers and as community leaders, for us to be able to truly bring policy that move us forward, if we don't know those stories, we can't really move forward. So I encourage people, whether they tell the stories through their own platform or through podcasts like these, or even through their own individual way, through their family, whatever the platform may be, tell your story, because that is how we truly learn about what's around us, especially within the age of misinformation and fake news and all of the deep fake out there. It is concerning that our stories are being told by other people that is incorrect. And especially in this political climate, as we have all experienced that interesting administration that's happening in the federal level. And I'm trying very hard to be very non-political in this statement, but just look at the people that make the decision for us on a federal level. And we're looking in the mirror and we go, why did we let that happen? And that tells me that even the people who support this administration, I don't think it's a blanket support, because there are people that are speaking up and go, wait, I didn't vote for this. But now they're almost like programmed to not negatively react, because obviously the federal administration is perfect and they can't do no wrong. So
Because it's a cult.
there's a bunch of other words.
I said it.
It is one of the words, but I think that's something that we as, community leaders, we got to break it down. And it's easy to sit there and criticize, but I think it's also people hide behind those criticism because they don't have solutions. And that's why state lawmaker and local policymaker actually affect everyday life more than you think. So I tell people who come to me and so frustrated about the federal government, I said, well, be more involved in your state and local level, because that is actually going to affect you every day. The federal folks, they are definitely going to be in gridlock because they have no term limits, and they have people who've been there for years and decades who are completely out of touch, but they hold all the power. And I think that's how we cannot move forward, is because our system is so broken.
You mentioned healthcare as one of the concerns in the community. Is it access to quality healthcare, or is it healthcare disparities? Are there certain concerns within the community that you all are really thinking about trying to figure out ways to alleviate?
I think right now our healthcare system is I don't know if there's a term that would closely describe it. All I know is that it hasn't caught up with the times. We have the shortage of healthcare providers, and we have shortage of access in terms of facilities and specialty that can take care of our, community. And for the longest time, the joke is, what is the best medical care in Vegas? And the answer would be at the airport. You have to fly out of here to get good medical care. And I don't think that's something that Nevadans wants. And so in terms of legislation that I'm able to work on in terms of healthcare, is we're addressing issues with prior authorization. And prior authorization is one of the biggest pain points right now for medical providers, is because when you train and license to be the healthcare provider, and you go and you provide this diagnosis for your patient, and then the insurance company will reject that diagnosis and then tell you that you can't give that, or you can't prescribe that, or you are not able to authorize those procedures that are life savings. That kind of, to me, is another common sense issue. So I'm working with the insurance industries as well as doctors to find a common sense solution, because why are we waiting weeks, sometimes months, for a procedure approval? Or why are we having medication that's only getting approved every 15 to 30 days, and then it's such a common medication that you have to wait for approval again before you can have these life-saving medication? I mean, it's ridiculous. My mom just told me that her medication that she takes now is on a 15 days interval, that she have to ask for a refill every 15 days. Now, in what world does that make sense? That you're in your senior years and you have to go to a pharmacy every 2 weeks just to get something that you need daily. I don't think that makes sense. So those are the things that we got to look at, the everyday people problem, and make it make sense, make it work.
It feels like it's a vicious cycle, because if she has to get something filled every 15 days, it also probably means she has to go to the doctors more often to get updated prescriptions to say if she still needs to be on this particular medication, which means she may need somebody to go with her or assist her at these appointments or what have you. And if somebody doesn't have paid leave to be able to take the time off to go take their loved one to the doctor more frequently, or wherever it is they need to go, then they're getting in trouble at work. And so it's this vicious cycle of things. And I think it highlights the point of how one policy affects another. And if we aren't able to do all of these things at the same time, that we won't be able to really actually help folks in their everyday life. Because you could pass one good policy, one good bill, but if another one doesn't pass, it may not be as helpful as we want it to be, because things are layered, because we're multifaceted people and we live multifaceted lives. It feels just a tad bit exhausting.
It truly is. And I think that's also a part of one of my legislation that I passed unanimous last session, was providing financial literacy for our high school students so that they understand the basic economics of being an adult, right? So we teach the students so many things and prepare them for the real world. But the one thing that we don't teach them is how to balance their financial life, because whether you're 5 or 85, you have different needs, and how you manage your money will affect you for the rest of your lives. So last session, I created the law that require every high school students to have financial literacy before they graduate. And this session, I'm planning to do the same for our college level students. So whether you're an undergraduate students, whether you're in a community college, you need to continue this financial literacy path, because, I remember coming out of high school and going to college, no one tells you how to stay away from those credit card applications that have compound interest that's going to, haunt you for the first few years of your adulthood, right? And then it set you up for bad credit so that you cannot afford a house or a car or even your own apartment, right? Because apartment rentals now go through a very, very high standard credit check. And so how are people being set up for successful when they don't have those basic knowledge? So then we see a lot of young adults still living at home with their parents because they don't have the financial means or even literacy to be able to be independent on their own. So I think those are things that are common sense, and we can truly, truly come together and fight all the noise, right? Right now, things that make the news are not necessarily really people or issues that affect everyday life. All these drama or all these telenovela kind of equivalent news are making the headlines and distract us from the everyday economics, where we need to focus on how to truly, this next generation that's coming up, Gen Z, they're going to be replacing all of us very soon. And do we give them the right tools for them to be successful? I know pricing of eggs seems to dominate the conversation, but we need more than eggs to make our state and our country move forward.
That is very true. And I think one of the things that made me think about is, if the next generation, if they don't have the tools that they need to be successful and to thrive, then it's not all their fault. It's also our fault, because we are the ones that are currently laying the path and we are setting this foundation up. And so if we don't do a good job and they fail, then we have to look in the mirror for ourselves. I want to ask you about immigration. Immigration is always a hot topic. It's always in the news. But usually there's a particular face when that people talk about immigration and the issues with ICE and everything that is currently happening with this current administration and the promises that were made before the election and during the campaign season, and even now, of mass deportations and X, Y, and Z. Is this a concern in the Asian community? How are folks thinking about immigration and ICE?
So I think I'm going to answer this outside of my elected role. I'm just going to answer this as an everyday person and a leader in the Asian community, is that a lot of times people think that it won't affect them. So they're not going to be as passionate about it. And that's because we all taught to keep our head down and, don't make waves or don't speak up. And I think the narrative around immigration is that only certain communities in this country are legal. The rest of us are be seen as anything other than that, right? So we went from a very modern, inclusive society into a very class separatist sorts of environment. And if you look a certain ways, then for some reason, you're not good enough. So, I think about the ways how United States of America was founded. Does anyone want to say that Christopher Columbus was documented? I don't know. I don't think he was, right?
Right.
Unless you are Native American who live on this land, they are native, right? Everybody else came in at first back then undocumented because they didn't have permission to go to this land. But now, fast forward, I think we as a country forget that we're all immigrants. Yeah, you may have been born here, but if you go back 5-6 generations, you are an immigrant. And the types of rhetoric around immigration right now, it's truly, truly disheartening, is because we don't see ourselves as human beings anymore. We see ourselves as one superior race versus a inferior group of people. And that, to me, changes the human experience. And the rhetoric right now with our federal government is that, immigrants are bad. Immigrants are taking things away from the US born or natural born citizens. And they forget that, immigrant is what makes this country great. And you know what? For those that love Elon Musk out there, who knows that, he's running the country, surprise everyone, Elon is an immigrant.
Very much so.
And whatever good that comes out of him is an immigrant. But why is immigrant also getting a bad rap? So I think the Asian community has to speak up. And I know that sometimes these political conversations turn off. People are going from friends or families to not speaking to each other because they avoid it. They don't want to see the bad. They only want to see the good. But it's hard for them to recognize that if they target one community, pretty soon they're going to target everybody in terms of this mass hysteria of going against immigrant. And so as leaders, again, speaking from my non-elected hat, is that all of us, it's not just the people in public office, but all of us have to have those conversations and be able to speak up and say, this is not right. We all are very blessed to be in this free country, and we need to continue to keep it that way and be more united.
Yeah, I think when folks use certain terms, it's obviously done on purpose to scare people and to dehumanize. So to call someone an illegal, whether they are here, whether they have crossed the border without paperwork or not, it's using that pejorative language that dehumanizes folks in a way that then people don't think about, why did they come here? People risk their lives to cross borders to get into other places, not because they want to go on vacation, not just because they, quote unquote, want to take your job. They are leaving something that's scary. If you feel like you have to leave your home where you came from, it's usually for some really important reasons. And so I think we have to get back to really humanizing folks and understanding their stories and what has happened and how we can be helpful and not a hindrance. I want to ask you, you have what shall we call it? It's a weekly connection with folks called Winning Wednesdays. It's on Instagram. I see it because I follow you on Instagram. Tell us about what Winning Wednesdays is.
Well, I try to be like Erika Washington when I grow up. So I'm not able to maybe do an hour content like this episode that I'm on. So I guess it's my amateur attempt to keep up with the constituent of District 8 and, Nevada constituent as a whole to give a much more simplistic approach to understanding what's going on in Carson City. And I think for playing on my last name and Winn and winning is obvious to some people, but some people are like, why did he use that? But I think
it helps people be able to pronounce your name right first time.
Oh Lord, yes.
I think that'll be helpful.
Yeah, that has been a struggle for many, many years. But so Winning Wednesday is a very basic look, because sometimes our process, when people look at it, they think it's very complex and it's not easy for everyday people to be engaged in the process. That's what I want to change. I want, whether you are 12 years old learning about civics engagement, or you're 85 where you've been really a pro at this, to look at this as a way for you to stay engaged in the process. And I think that's how government should really work, is that transparency and that ability to bring people together. It's just a short, simple way to break down what's going on in Carson. And in the coming weeks, I hope to bring a little bit more in-depth content to be able to address some of the legislations that I'm doing, and that helps our everyday people to be engaged in the process.
We want to make sure people can stay involved and stay connected, and that they know that their voice does matter, and that you and other legislators want to hear what they have to say. And one thing I think that is great about Nevada, and very unique, because a lot of other states don't do this, is that people can really stay engaged with the legislature. There's online, you can go on to the state's website that is called Nellis, and you can track bills even as just a constituent and not like a paid lobbyist. You can put bills in the tracker and it'll give you updates, and you can follow what's happening. You can also watch all of the hearings and the floor from your computer, whether you're sitting at your desk, in your office, or at home. And then you also have the opportunity to call in and testify, or you can email in testimony, or you can come to Carson City and testify in person, or you can testify down in Las Vegas in the new building. I still haven't been in the new building yet, but I heard it was really nice. It's near the airport. And so there are a lot of different ways in which folks can stay connected. Before you go, I would love for you to think about, as a very accomplished person who's done a lot, as an immigrant, as a husband, as a leader in the community, as the first Vietnamese person to hold any state office, or the local office too. Is it local?
I want to make sure I say it correctly, because I have a couple of colleagues that will call me on this.
Oh, well, let's get it right.
Yeah, I'm the first Vietnamese immigrant. That means I was not born in the U.S. to hold an elected office in Nevada. So I wanted to do a shout out to my mentor and colleague, State Senator Duy Nguyen, who actually was the first Vietnamese to be elected. But Senator Winn was born in the U.S. So that is the distinction between herself and me, is that I'm the first immigrant to be elected in this role. So
first immigrant Vietnamese to be elected into state office. Youi Winn, what is your version of the American dream? What does that look like?
Wow, this is a tough question to close. I think I need a little bit more caffeine to be able to give this answer some justice here. But I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try and make it work.
You can do it. You can do it.
What I did there.
You know, and you know what? And I appreciate all the ways in which you are keeping it branded, because that's a whole sticky note right there.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to earn my A's. I think American dream to me is that you be able to really, truly live your life and accomplish your widest dream, whatever you want to be, wherever you want to be, and however you want to be, the sky's the limit. And American dream for all of us is different. But for me, I can tell for myself is that, growing up in a war-torn poverty country and coming into United States, I know that I have so much blessing more than so many of my peers and people my age back in Vietnam. And so I'm definitely not taking it for granted. So opportunities and access are truly my North Star right now. And as long as I'm able to be blessed to do this, is to pay it forward and to give back, to be able to say, you know what, we can work together and we can bring all of us up. There is such a negative feeling in the air right now in the past couple of months that for one group to be good, then we have to push another group down. And I think that's something that we can do better. We can do better because we have to do better for our next generations and for the generations to come. So that American dream, go back to the one word that is, I think, could describe as well, is that American dream is about hope. And I think once we have the hope, once we have that commitment to always put hope in the front, then we can truly move forward as a society and as the human race. And that's something that I strive every day to provide hope for everything that I'm doing. And I'm blessed to have surrounded by people like you and others who keep me honest every day. And I want to make sure that my constituent, whether you live in my district or you live in the state of Nevada, I do listen. And there are sometimes hundreds of emails that it takes some time for me to get to. I do read every single email that come through to the office. And I want to make sure that people know that they can always count on me to listen. And hope is there. We can move our community forward. We just need to continue to do that and not look back so that we can make it work.
Assembly member Youi Winn, I appreciate you for your time on this Saturday, your time that you have committed to this community, both in your official position and just as a resident and human being that walks this earth. And I'm grateful to know you as a friend, and I'm so grateful that you decided to do an episode of Sticky Note Conversations. Thank y'all for listening and tuning in to Sticky Note Conversations. We'll be back next week with another episode, and we'll see you then.
Thanks for listening to Sticky Note Conversations with Erika Washington. Hosted and executively produced by Erika Washington, with editing by Black Gypsy LLC and Simone Endres. Special thanks to KUNV 91.5 in Las Vegas. This show is powered by Make It Work Nevada, a project of Tides Advocacy.
Hey y'all, this is Erika Washington, the creator, executive producer, and host of American Dreams, Reproductive Justice, and Sticky Note Conversations. I hope this episode has moved you and created a space for curiosity and a hunger to want to do more. What you may not know is that I am also the executive director of Make It Work Nevada, a reproductive justice organization that organizes and advocates for policies we all need to thrive. We believe everyone has the right to make choices and to have access to the resources they need in their community. Our goal is to create spaces to lift up and amplify the stories of people in our communities and to help create positive changes that have a ripple effect for generations. I hope you'll connect with us to learn more about how to support our mission to create a world where we all thrive. Visit us at makeitworknevada.org and also find us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and the other Twitter. Thanks so much for listening.
You're listening to
Sticky Note Conversations with Erika Washington.